but did not receive the yellow copy of the record of count. In the second complaint, he stated that the number of invalid votes was placed in the valid vote column, while the valid vote number was placed in the invalid vote column. In the third complaint, he stated that due to the many irregularities reported in his first two complaints, he requested the issuance of the following breaks with a prohibition on the declaration of the winner for the senatorial position of Liberia County with of 30 rounds. The first two complaints were consolidated and disposed of as follows. In the first complaint, the investigation revealed that yes, he got the highest vote in his center. As such, he was entitled to a yellow copy of the record of count. However, his pool washer did not receive same because at the time the presiding officer called out to issue same, his pool washer was not around. So in keeping with NEC regulation, the next person in line was given same. However, it was established that the number of votes obtained was not taken away from him. In the second complaint, the investigation finding shows that this was a harmless error committed by the presiding officer, which did not affect the substantial interest of any candidate or the election result. For the third complaint, the investigation ruled that the inconsistent of the law as cited in Article 83C of the 1986 Constitution and the new election law of 1986, as amended Chapter 6, Section 6.1, which states that any political party or candidate who has justifiable reasons to believe that the election were not impartially conducted shall have the right to file a complaint with the commission. Such complaint must be filed within 7 days after the announcement of the result of the elections. Based on the law here cited above, the investigation ruled that senatorial candidate Chukwu may file his complaint after the announcement of the final result. It was from this ruling the complainant took an appeal to the Board of Commissioners. The board ruled that the ruling of the hearing officer was interlocutory, and ruling as such remanded the case for final determination. Though the complaint for its face value is requesting for NEC breaks such as rate of prohibition on the declaration of the winner for the senatorial position of Liberia County and rate of safety rally. But the hearing officer reason to hear same matter on the merits said it is more about irregularities. This matter was assigned and hearing started on the 20th of November 2023. The complainant first witness in person of Boston B. Inner took a stand and testified as follows: that some tally sheets or record of accounts were not stamped in keeping with NEC regulation, that one ballot paper was not accounted for at Republican Town Hall Code 2701, 27017, that there were alterations on some of the records of counts. On November 28, 2023, the Council for Complainant made a submission requesting the hearing to produce additional records of counts that indicate electoral irregularities. Said submission was resisted by Council for Respondent on grounds that the law on which the complainant counsel relied on is not applicable, that is, newly discovered evidence. The investigation denied the objection and granted the complainant the opportunity to bring the additional pieces of evidence sensing were about electoral irregularities. The other point, the complainant took the witness stand to testify on his own behalf. During his testimony, he basically testified to the same thing as his first witness, except that he specifically stated that all of the alteration made mention of were all inferior or corresponding level ground. When the complainant wrestled with the production of both oral and documentary evidence, the correspondent took the stand on behalf of himself and testified as follows: that the constant ballot papers that the complainant testified to was brought out during the tally period, and it was resolved and characterized as human error. Additionally, it was the complainant who benefited from seeing more, in that most of the votes on the unstamped ballot paper were in his favor. That the alteration or correction made mention of by the complainant was also raised by him to his representative at the tally. It was also considered as human error. That the alteration or correction on the record of counts did not only benefit he alone, that there are places where his votes were reduced. The correction made on the record of counts were done at the polling in the presence of party agents. Upon the testimony of the correspondent, the respondent also rested with the production of evidence. Based on the facts and the evidence adduced at the hearing, the issues for determination are whether or not correction made to the record of counts in the presence of party agent can subsequently be considered as irregularities. 2, whether or not error made by electoral officer which does not prove to have affected the results of the election is a ground to nullify the result of the election. As to the first issue, that is to say, whether or not correction made to the record of count in the presence of party agent can subsequently be considered as irregularity, this investigation answers this question in the negative. The complainant before this investigation did not present any evidence that during this correction his co-workers were not part of sin. Had it been the case wherein complainant produced evidence that when these changes were made, his co-workers objected to sin, yet they were made, it would have warranted sufficient evidence for irregularities. The allegation made by the complainant is speculative in that it is based on the facts that corrections were made on the records of counts, so sin amounts to irregularities. Irregularities must be specifically proven, not speculative. Wherefore, as to the second issue, whether or not error made by the electoral officers which does not prove to have affected the results of the election is a ground to nullify the result of the elections. This legal question is answered in the negative. Chapter 6, section 6.1, paragraph 3 of the legal election law states, among other things, that error of any officer which shall not be proved to have affected the result of the election is harmless error. In this case, the unstamped ballot paper were due to harmless error on the part of NEC workers. Wherefore, in view of the foregoing, the complainant complaint is hereby dismissed for lack of sufficient evidence to prove sin. Given one of my hand the 7th day of December 2023, and hereby so order. That's the ruling in the first complaint.
Which the hearing counsel for the complainant, one of counsel for the complainant and announce and agree to the court. Thank you, Mr. President.
Representation noted. Appeal is granted as a matter of law. You have asked for order. So, like in your play, I have to say the joke. We made it. So, we won.
He's sitting on this side.
Can we stand up? The clerk for the case. The case. I would have the Bofachima versus NEC and Anthony Williams. What's the final ruling on this 7th day of December, AD 2023, before hearing officer Richard Dafoe, the case. Representation.
The record is proceeding. Councillor Abo is saying that the Boston and the senior are sitting in for the hearing and ready to receive your own ruling when they respectfully submit.
Co-respondent continues to be represented. As for records, present at this hearing is Councillor P. Anthony Mason. When it's submitted.
Representation noted. Ruling. On the 13th of October 2023, the National Election Commission Local Office in Capua County received a complaint from Ms. Bofachima, the CDC representative candidate in District Number 2, Liberia County. In said complaint, he stated that he received complaint from his pool washers which alleges several irregularities on the part of NEC staff assigned at voting precinct code 27020 at Old Solican, Maryland County. The basic allegation of his complaint are as follows. That Joseph Kosh, one of his pool washers, assigned at polling place number 1, informed him that a fellow named Peter Clark, a CPP partisan and a CPP partisan and a supporter of senatorial the supporter of candidate Anthony F. Williams. Please just stay on. Sorry, actually, Anthony F. Williams was being resisted by voters for popular campaigning for votes in the change of water, and his alleged act of Peter Clark was aided by some polling staff. That certain polling staff at polling place 1 aided by Boston was instructing voters on how to vote without consulting the observer, and that when sin was reported to the presiding officer and requested to be given complaint form to report sin, the polling staff refused to do sin, or rather threatened to throw him out of the voting hall, and that he, Joseph Hush, was eventually thrown out of the polling place number 1. That the polling staff kept the polling precinct open to newcomer voter up to 10 p.m. against advice of 2 watchers. That a fellow claiming to be the mayor community dwellers listening to was seated in the voting hall instructing people to vote, and that 2 watchers requested that the mayor head out, but the polling staff refused. That throughout election day, October 10th, to the next day, supporters of Kennedy Anthony Williams threatened to use all means, including traditional means and violence, to pull CDC supporters out of the voting hall. By that day, the CDC called for the police in Pligo to rescue. That when the police left about 1 a.m. the next day, violence against the CDC pool watchers increased, wherein the voting hall was held siege of all sides by Kennedy Anthony F. Williams to about 9 a.m. Wednesday the next day, when additional sounds were being heard, which caused everyone to flee and leaving several inches before the coming of the police for the 7th time. That NEC staff allowed people who did not register in Old Solican to vote there. That CDC was denied the right to participate in the final ballot counting process and posting of the final voting result on the wall of the precinct. And the NEC supervisor, Sisi Muna, put CDC pool watchers out of the polling hall just for requesting a complaint form. In closing, the complainant stated that CDC pool watchers did not sign record of the count at polling place number 2 in Old Solican, therefore create this hearing to quarantine the voting result for Representative Kennedy at this center. While the hearing was pending, Kennedy Chimwas filed another complaint through his Cali Room representative Marcus Segbe, in which complaint he stated that the record of count received from polling place number 2 of precinct 27020 Old Solican was not stamped by the presiding officer, and it was indicated that there was excess ballot papers at the center amounting to 962 ballot papers as indicated by the presiding officer. Also stated that polling place number 1, Gololu present the report constituting the record of the count there to clearly state that the unused, spoiled, and discarded ballot paper are 550 and the total valid and invalid votes stands at 353, which is not the normal procedure. Since this complaint of excess ballot paper was much easier to do, the fact-finding and investigation was immediately launched by that. Jimmy Tajo, the presiding officer of the polling place number 1 at Old Solican, is precinct code 27020, was subpoenaed to testify in this proceeding. In his testimony, he stated that as per his record, there were no excess ballot papers, and that he was given for the presidency 550 ballot paper, for the senatorial 550 ballot paper, and for the representative 550 ballot paper. Specifically speaking to the representative votes process, the witness said that for the representative, he received 550 ballots for representative. After they concluded with the voting process, there were 138 ballots that were not used. After subtracting the 138 from the 550, they noticed that 412 ballots should be in the ballot box. They then opened the ballot box and did the counting and found that the total valid votes were 392 and the total invalid votes to be 20, which sum came up to 412 plus the 138 unused ballot paper. The total is equal to 550. Upon taking evidence in the excess ballot paper complaint, the investigation reserved ruling so that together, along with the other alleged allegations, complaint of can be passed for once and for all. On October 17, 2023, the investigation started taking evidence from October 13, 2023 complaint of Kennedy Chambers and therein happened NEC local office. The complainant paraded 2 witnesses in person of Dalwa David and Jackson K. Weir, and NEC, the respondent brought C.C. Muna, electoral supervisor. It was at this stage that the investigation moved as follows. Having heard both sides of the argument of both petitioner and respondent, and being cognizant of the law as cited in Article 83C of the 1986 Constitution, the new election law of 1986 as amended Chapter 6, Section 6.1, which states that any political party or candidate who has justified reason to believe that the elections were not impartially conducted shall have the right to file a complaint with the Commission. Such complaint must be filed not later than 7 days after the announcement of the final result. Based on the law here stated above, I hereby rule that any further determination in this matter is hereby suspended until final announcement of the final result of the elections by National Election Commission. From this ruling, the complainant took exception and announced an appeal to the Board of Commissioners. The board heard the matter and ruled that the ruling of the hearing officer was interlocutory. As such, remanded the case and mandated that the hearing officer resume jurisdiction and proceed with the hearing. Upon the reading of the board mandate on November 7, 2023, one of counsel for the complainant made a submission to the investigation in which he stated as follows: that the hearing officer recused himself from the matter since he had earlier made determination in the matter, that the hearing officer grant change of venue before recusal, That is, the matter should now be heard at NEC National Office in Steel Harbor, Maryland County. That NEC inadvertently omitted 2 or 3 books of the complainant. As such, the hearing officer should have seen corrected before the accuser. The submission was resisted by co-respondent counsel in part. That is to say, they agree with the change of venue, disagree with the accuser of the hearing officer on ground that scene should have been requested prior to the taking of evidence as stated in Chapter 13, Section 13.1 of NEC hearing procedure. On this submission and the resistance thereto, hearing officer ruled and granted the change of venue and denied the recusal in keeping with Chapter 13, Section 13.1 of the NEC hearing procedure. When this submission was passed upon, one of counsel again for the complainant immediately informed the investigation that they had filed with the NEC and the amended complaint in keeping with 8.1A and B NEC hearing procedure. Instead communication, they requested for NEC the following: that the complainant obtained 2 or 3 books as CRC polling place number 1 for NEC placed on its website 0 vote for complainant. Therefore, NEC should amend complaint to include investigation of said matter. To this submission, counsel for correspondent Anthony F. Williams resisted on ground that Chapter 8, Section 8.1 of the NEC hearing procedure provides that a party may amend its pleading once at any time before the commencement of hearing or investigation. On this submission, the investigation ruled and denied the application in keeping with Chapter 8, Section 8.1A of the NEC hearing procedure, which defines commencement of hearing or investigation as follows. Hearing is deemed to commence when a notice of assignment has been issued for the recording or taking of evidence. At the time the application was made, notices have been issued and some witnesses have already testified. On November 8, 2023, sitting, one of counsel of the complainant prayed the hearing to qualify 2 witnesses in person of Jackson K. Weir and Dalowa Davis. Counsel for co-respondent objected to the witnesses on grounds that the record revealed that they had earlier testified in Apple, Maryland County. Upon review of the record, it was shown that indeed these 2 witnesses had earlier testified in Apple, Maryland County. Therefore, the hearing sustained the objection of the respondent counsels and denied the witnesses from testifying again. Thereafter, the counsel for respondent, the counsel for the complainant placed on the witness stand Marcus Sibel, who testified as follows. 1, that he was assigned as supervisor of a pool washer representing CDC. 2, collection of records of count tally sheet from all polling places, including CRC Elementary and Jill High School. Rebel Palava Court Division 5 and 6, that he visited Old Solican about 6 a.m. October 11, 2023, and voting was still going on. And that he also received report from his pool washer at Old Solican that electoral supervisor Sisi Muna Mimble asked his pool washer out of the pooling room after the pool washers made inquiry about a plastic bag containing ballot papers in possession of electoral supervisor. That when the pool washers were asked for, they requested that another colleague of theirs goes in, but the electoral supervisor refused. That a mail error of Old Solican informed that the reason why people were still informed him that the reason why people were still voting is because they came made from the farm on the voting day. That when the pool washer took his phone to report that people were still voting on the 11th day of October 2023, co-respondent Anthony Williams' supporters started beating him, and that right within that time, ERU arrived, and that thereafter, he started hearing Wajao, which means devil is coming, and that not being member, he left the scene. That there was no state security at the center when he arrived. When the convener witness Marcus Seeger was discharged, convener counsel placed on the witness stand Stephen Russell, who testified as follows. And he was a pool washer for CDC assigned at Old Solican. That there was and that scene was reported to the queue controller, but he said police officers were not many, and he is a queue controller who not stop scene. Now the queue controller did not stand behind to not stop anybody from voting. That there was an error in the hall that was not an NEC staff. There was not the NEC staff. He reported scene to the presiding officer, and in response, the presiding officer said he is the man that people can listen to. As such, he was helping to calm the tension. That the presiding officer brought complaint form lately and gave scene to the CDC observers, so the only option he had was to record his complaint in Kabeko. That the electoral supervisor came in the hall with black plastic bag containing ballot papers in it. At that point, he asked for complaint form. In response, the presiding officer said he has earlier given one to them. When he received the complaint form, the electoral supervisor said he should get out of the hall and go to Harbour with his complaint. That the tribal people were beating the supervisor Jackson Weir. Even one started running. At the point he wanted to go back in, but the women locked the door, so he left. While going, the police passed by him. Subsequently, he started hearing gun sound. Others said it was Jackson, the supervisor. The police went to rescue. When complainant second witness Stephen Russell was discharged from the witness stand, complainant third witness H. Melchizedek took the stand and testified as follows. That on the 13th of October 2023, he did a post in which he stated that you cannot use a woman to get to me. On the 14th of October 2023, Sisi Muna Mimble called called him, asking, why sell post? In response, he said it was social issue. Next, he asked for about the happenings in Old Solican Precinct. In response, he said the people wanted to rent them, and that the little boat, Anthony F. Williams, that in Old Solican was stopped by Bob. That C.C. Muna, the electoral supervisor, posted Stephen Russell outside of the polling place. That C.C. Muna, the electoral supervisor, intended creating a lie so that there can be a rerun in Bololu and other precincts, and that it was at this point his phone cut off. The father stated that all of these conversations were automatically recorded by his phone. When complainant tell witness the incident who was discharged from the witness stand, complainant folk witness Robert T. Weir took the witness stand and testified as follows, which testimony began on page 19 of November 8, 2023 minutes. That he was a pool washer assigned at Washington Elementary School, and that before the opening of pooling staff informed them that those who cannot read or write will choose someone of their choice to aid them, unlike those who can read and write. However, during the voting process, he observed that even those who said they can read and write were still requesting assistance from others. Sin was raised by him and was resolved by the electoral supervisor, C.C. Muna. As C.C. Muna, electoral supervisor, asked him to receive from all ballot papers, each for representative, senator, and presidential, so that he can teach the people to vote, since the voters do not know how to vote. In response, he says sin will be difficult, in that each category of ballot paper has 550, and as such, if any is taken out, sin will be discovered during the checking period. In response, the electoral supervisor said, leave that with me. That after his conversation with the electoral supervisor, a vehicle came for him to go to Fligo to have discussion on issues affecting the war room. Upon his return, the presiding officer, Lawrence Liu, informed him that the electoral supervisor said he, Robert Weir, was running campaign, which allegation he denied. That voting at Washington ended by 3 a.m. the 11th of October 2023, and that after 2 hours, we went to Old Solican, sent the tally sheet or record account was not yet cutting from there. When this question rested, counsel for complainant prayed the hearing to subpoena to be served on Jimmy Tacho, presiding officer for Old Solican, and the presiding officer for CRC Division 5 and 6 to produce the tally sheets, records of count. Also seen to be issued on ERU commander, who was part of the rescue mission at Old Solican on election day. The hearing sustained the resistance of counsel for the full respondent in keeping with chapter 5.
Folks, if you follow it, I'm sure there's some technical issues with the hearing officer's computer. If you're following, this is a case from the ruling between the House Speaker of Chambers and candidate Anthony Williams, who was announced winner of the elections, October elections in Maryland, Playboy District. And Speaker Chambers filed a complaint to the NEC of irregularities, and this is the complaint that is being heard, and today is the final ruling by the NEC hearing officer. It is expected that the result from here will be, appeal will be taken to the Board of Commissioners, and subsequently probably the Supreme Court, regardless of who favor it is today, in whose favor it is. So thank you for rejoining us. I'm sure your computer, the hearing officer has sort of.
Sorry, we had a meeting because okay, so we continue the ruling, please. The last hour, that voting what you can end up at 3 a.m. The 11 working days, and after 2 hours you went to Old Solican. The tally sheet or record account were yet to. When this whistle rested, the counsel for the complainant prayed the hearing for opinion to be issued on Jimmy Tacho, presiding officer of Old Solican, and the presiding officer for CRC Division 6 to produce the tally sheet record account. Also seen to be issued on the ERU commander who was part of the rescue mission at Old Solican on election day. To this application, counsel for correspondent Anthony Williams resisted in part as to the CRC Division 5 and 6 on ground that sin was not part of the original complaint. A hearing sustained the resistance of counsel for co-respondent in keeping with chapter 6, section 6.1 and 5.2, 5.1 and 5.2 of the hearing procedure of the NEC, which states as follows. 5.1, a complaint must be in writing accompanied by all documentary evidence. 5.2, the complaint shall contain such material facts and necessary particulars so as to give the respondent notice of the particular violation being alleged. It was based on this ruling that the hearing officer was taken on summary before the Board of Commissioners of NEC. The board ruled and mandated as follows: that the magistrate, that is the hearing officer, resume jurisdiction over the matter to hear from the complainant's witnesses as proper. Here also complainant's allegation regarding books of 203 from Crucial Code 27014. Upon reading the mandate, counsel for co-respondent made an application before the hearing stating that can two of the mandates suggest that only witnesses who have not yet testified will be allowed to testify, and that and those that testify and discharge will not be allowed. Counsel of co-respondent relied on chapter 19, section 19.1, states among other things that the list of witnesses shall be provided prior to the taking of evidence. Passing on this matter, the hearing ruled that prior to the first sitting in Monrovia, all parties were informed to submit lists of witnesses and that which each will speak to. Based on that, complainant submitted a list of witnesses, and among them were names of witnesses who have testified and were objected, which the hearing sustained, and that the board had mandated that we hear complainant witnesses as proper, including witnesses that will testify to the complaint regarding recent 27014. As such, complainant witnesses will be allowed to testify as proper. Complainant fifth witness, Dawa David, took the witness stand and testified similar to witness Stephen Russell, except for a few other things. Complainant's second witness which testimony began on page 8 of November 27, 2023 days. One, that he was co-washer for CDC at Old Sonicam polling place number 1. That one period clerk, Ruben Tobac and others were putting people in the queue and taking order from them. As such, if nothing is done about it, no voting will take place. That all the pool washers and NDC staff were eating together. That a man was allowed to vote with driver lesson. When complainant fifth witness Dawa David was discharged, one of counsel for complainant prayed the hearing to issue a subpoena on Clinton Morris, the police officer who responded to the situation in Old Solicon. The said subpoena was issued, and Officer Clinton appeared and testified as follows: that he visited Old Solicon 2 a.m. The 10th to the 11th October 2023. Now, during the first sitting during the first visit at 2 p.m., NEC had already closed the facility they were using because they were being threatened by bystanders. That when they visited for the second time, they rescued one person who was mocked nearly to death. Also testified to a video recording that that the police escorted the NEC staff and the ballot boxes to NEC office in Harper about 11 on October 11, 2023. When Clinton Morris, the police was discharged, counsel for complainant rested with the production of witnesses with a notice to produce the rebuttal witnesses. While in Harper, the first witness who testified for respondent was Sisi Muna Nimle. In her testimony, she stated that on October 11, 2023, about 11:56 a.m., she arrived in Old Solican and met the counting process at polling place number 2. And that she observed that the polling place was overcrowded by people who were not supposed to be there. When she asked the presiding officer as to why the place was overcrowded, he responded by saying that people or party agents and observers who were at polling place 1 migrated to polling place 2 after the process ended at polling place 2. Based on said response, she took the list and called only those agents who supposed to be at polling place number 2. Now, thereupon, it was still observed that each party was still represented by 2 persons. As such, she asked the party agents to make a choice as to who to remain in the polling room so that the number in the polling place can be further reduced. Now, after the counting, when the second witness, which was after the counting, when the second stage, which was sorting, a CDC party agent named Stephen Russell requested a complaint form complaint form, and she, the electoral was told by the presiding officer that he has earlier been given one before for a rival. That she asked the CDC party agent as to whether he was earlier given a complaint form, and in response, the party agent answered in the affirmative. By that, she told him to use the one earlier given him, and that the party agent insisted that his complaint be heard in the polling place while the process was going on. That she informed the CDC party agent that complaints are not heard in the polling place, but the party agent kept insisting, and that said after the party agent was putting track to the process, in that said process is the most sensitive process which required non-interference. That finally, she asked the CDC party agent, in keeping with Chapter 4, Section 10, Chapter 4, Section 10, Paragraph 3 of the new election law, with the opportunity to substitute him. That she does not have knowledge of any conflict coming at Old Solican polling center. Responding first witness during the memorial sitting. When the complainant rested with the production of evidence, yes, we had only had a computer that started giving power to do for.
What was it? Saba.
Come to me. Come.
Very free.
I have a big.
Saba. Okay. Coming back. All right. No, the reason they work here. No, yeah, those are people like I said, John. They are coming. They don't just want to serve. Yeah, come.
Hey, how are you?
Alright, so what we'll do, let me get a summary of the audio. Sorry, we have some technical problem. Alright, so
I see why I say no, no.
So, one quick. We will move forward to the analysis since we already have that and the issues that were basically mentioned. So, chapter 12, section 12.1 of the NEC hearing procedure says that hearing officer or hearing officer or hearing or investigation before the NEC shall be conducted without a jury. Based on this, in keeping with this law, it means that NEC hearing officer or magistrate sits at both office as officer of the law and officer of the judge. As such, this investigation look at issues of facts and law, which are stated as follows. One, whether or not there were excess ballot paper at Old Surricane Precinct 2702 and polling place number 1 or Gololu Precinct Code 2701. Whether or not NEC staff has legal authority to remove a party agent from polling place wherein the conduct of the agent amounts to interfering of the counting process. 3, whether or not the casting of vote by voter at Old Surricane Precinct Code 27020 continued from October 10 to the 11th, 2023, and if so, whether seen is a violation of the electoral law. Whether or not vote obtained by each candidate at Division 5 and 6 are included in the total sum of votes published by the NEC on its website for each candidate. But whether or not the arrival of Wajao or Conde de was announced at Old Surricane voting precinct 27020, seeing the disrupted the process. Whether or not the audio recording produced by complainant during the investigation established electoral irregularity. Whether or not the video recording the police officer Clinton Morris testified to demonstrate a chaotic scene which disrupted the election process at Old Surricane. So, counsel, based on the issue, because the facts in the case were very low with many witnesses, and these were serious things that were being raised. We could not pass on like the other case that have only 2 or 3 witnesses. So, based on your intervention at the time or your request, we will just run over these issues. So, as to the first issue, that is to say whether or not there were excess ballot paper at Old Surricane Precinct Code 27020, polling place number 1 at Gololu Precinct Code 2720. As per the finding of the investigation, this hearing says that there were no excess ballot papers in these two polling places. In the testimony of the presiding officer, he stated that for representative, he received 550 ballots. After they concluded with the voting process, there were 138 ballot papers that were not used. After subtracting the 138 from the 550, they noticed that 412 ballots should have been in the box. They then opened the ballot box and did the counting and found that the total ballot votes were 392 and the total invalid vote to be 40, which sum up to 412 plus the 138 unused ballot paper. The total is equal to 550. The observation of the investigation is that the complainant added the people that represented unused ballot paper 138 plus invalid vote 20 plus valid vote 392 plus what was initially expected to be in the ballot 412 to be in the ballot. Unused ballot paper were subtracted from which the unused ballot paper was subtracted. That was given which the NEC said. That means 138 plus 20 plus 392 plus 412 equal to 962. This is the 962 complainant amounted to excess ballot paper. This investigation also established that the complainant also applied the same miscalculation to Lulu precinct when he added the 353 that represents invalid and valid votes to 550 that represents the actual ballot paper that was given NEC staff. In conclusion on this issue, the hearing says there was no excess ballot paper given the NEC staff assigned at these two polling places above. Also, the second issue, whether or not NEC staff have the authority to remove a party agent from the polling place wherein the conduct of the agent amounts to interference of the counting process. This investigation is in the affirmative, chapter 4, section 4.10, paragraph 3 of the new election law states, during the polling and counting, a representative of the party or candidate shall not interfere or delay the presiding officer or other officer in their duty, nor insist that they follow a request made by the representative. A representative who is not satisfied may make a written complaint under section 5.9. In keeping with this law, this hearing says the election supervisor system will not act properly by asking the CDC agent Stephen Russell to leave the polling room and be replaced by another polling so to watch the process which while he writes his complaint for subsequent submission to the NEC in keeping with chapter 5, section 5.9 of the new election law. This investigation established that the request of Stephen Russell was made during the counting and sorting process based on the following facts. The complainant written complaint at count 7 says that CDC was denied the right to participate in the final ballot counting process and investigation posting of the final result on the wall of the precinct. And the NEC supervisor system will now poke CDC who wash her out of the hall just for requesting form. More so, the electoral supervisor testified that she got at Old Solitaire on October 11, 2023, about 7:56 a.m. and met the counting process at polling place number 2, and that she observed that the place was overcrowded by people who were not supposed to be there. Additionally, both parties acknowledged that prior to overcoming, CDC party agents were given complaint form for which they misplaced and started requesting another during their counting or sorting period. In conclusion on this issue, this investigation says that the action of the electoral supervisor to ask agent, the CZ agent to leave the polling place and send another polling team to watch the process was within our authority. It was intended to keep the process peaceful and stable, and that our action was not targeted at CDC and our agent. Considering that CDC signed all the record of count for the presidential senatorial representative for polling place 1, except for polling place number 2, where the agent was requesting complaint form while the counting or sorting was going on. As to issue number 2, that is to say whether or not the casting of vote by voter at Old Solican Precinct 2702 for October 10 to the 11th, and if so, what I seen was election irregularity. While it is true that the investigation established that the voting at Old Solican ran from the 10th of October to the 11th of October 2023, that scene did not amount to electoral irregularity. Voting process running from the voting day to the next day is a normal happening. As such, it was not only unique to Maryland County District No. 2. The voting of a polling place will finish if and only if those voters that were already in the queue are finished voting. Or if they are many in the queue, that's why the polling is announced closed. They will vote until already occupied queue is empty. Who close means have no new voter is or are allowed in the queue while voting finish means that those already in the queue are there with impunity in order the voting at the time of voting can finish in particular polling place depending on the number of place. And voting line, the last person in the queue at 6 o'clock will remain in the line until 7% vote. As to the fourth issue, whether or not vote obtained by each candidate at Division 5 and 6 are included in the total sum of votes published by the NEC website for each candidate. This investigation established that the record of count from all 57 polling places in Division 2, Maryland County, District No. 2, Maryland County were tallied, and it was considered tallied that each candidate or participant that the total votes obtained. The result of said tally were signed by agents of political parties in Harper, Maryland County, and same was subsequently published on NEC website. However, this investigation found it showed that while NEC was publishing on its website, the progressive report on each polling place, they inadvertently recorded 0 for all candidates at polling place number 1 of 27014 at Division 5 and 6. It was based on this report published on NEC website that the complainant through his counsel requested the investigation to add total of 203 votes that he got from his this polling place. The respondent counsel resisted said addition on grounds that it did not affect the overall result from tally conducted in Harper, Maryland County. They further argued that the tally in Harper was inclusive of all polling places, including polling place number 1, precinct 27014, Division 5 and 6, and that was placed on the website was emo and that one place on the website where emo was sent. It did not affect the overall result. It was based on this contention that the investigation subpoenaed the data section of NEC to appear and testify to the publication when NEC data officer here, it was established that the same number of votes each candidate obtained in keeping with the preliminary declaration that all candidates signed on was the same total number of votes each candidate has on the website. By this, the investigation concluded that it was human error when the professional results were being placed on the website prior to the final result publication. Chapter 6, Section 6.1, Paragraph 3 of the new election law states among other things that error of any officer which shall not be proved to have affected the result of the election is harmless error. The investigation concluded on this issue and says that the error made by the data officer of NEC by entering 0 on the website for all candidates are putting place 1 of precinct 27-014 was harmless error since said entry did not affect the result of the election. In other words, there is no discrepancy between the final tally result from NEC Upper Office and the final result published by NEC National Office. As to the fifth issue, whether or not the arrival of Wajao under the was announced at Old Solican voting precinct 27-020 and what I seen disrupted voting process. The investigation established that the coming of Wajao or Conde Dero never existed. As such, the voting process was never disrupted by Wajao or Conde Dero at Old Solican. The complainant witnesses are the only ones who testified to sin, even though the complainant provided video by way of subpoena from the police to indicate that Old Solican was chaotic during the election, but throughout that video, the investigator could not establish the presence of Wajao. Even the police officer from who the video was subpoenaed did not state that there was Wajao or Conde Dero present. In closing on this issue, this hearing says that there was no account that established the existence of Conde Dero. So to the follow reading, this investigation says that wherefore, and in view of the foregoing facts and law citation, this hearing says that the complaint of the complainant is hereby dismissed for failure to prove sin. This hearing further says that the result of district number 2 Maryland County as obtained and declared by NEC for each representative be upheld and it is hereby so ordered. Given order my hand and seal of next day, 7th day of November 2023, and it is hereby so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Yankee.
Hey, no loss reading of the hiring officer of the council for complainant to which reading of the hearing officer board of council for complainant accepts and announces the plea to the honorable board of commissioner, the National Election Commission, when the respectfully submit.
As session noted, appeal granted as a matter of law. So, Council. Hello.